People may forget what you said. People might forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. I want to repeat that. People may forget what you said. And people might forget what you did. But people never, ever forget how you made them feel. I'm a Hoosier. And I would expect that many of you here in the middle of Indiana are Hoosiers. But can anybody here define to me what a Hoosier is? Can you show me a picture of a Hoosier? Is there a Hoosier mascot for the state? Were there historical figures that identified themselves as Hoosiers? Is the term Hoosier a mascot in itself? Is it a feeling or a deeper meaning or a unique nickname from our past? As people from Indiana, we have been calling ourselves Hoosiers for the last 170 years. But when it comes to physically or factually a definition or an explanation of what a Hoosier and where it came from, that's open to both speculation and debate. Is a Hoosier someone who races fast cars at the Indianapolis 500? No. Is a Hoosier someone who cut limestone blocks from the quarries over 100 years ago? No. I know. How about is a Hoosier a basketball player who played in the famous movie Hoosiers, where they won the Indiana State Championship from a tiny little town in Milan, Indiana? No. So what or who is a Hoosier? Well, believe it or not, it's you and I. We're Hoosiers. As I was going through school in Indiana from kindergarten through 12th grade and also college, I was given several different definitions of historical what a Hoosier is. First one is an unusual nickname appeared in print as early as 1832 and gained popularity with the usage of the following year after a publication in an Indiana resident, John Finley's poem called The Hoosier's Nest. There's my teaching for the day. Teachers always have to put something in. Right, Patty? Second, or Leslie, or any of the rest of you teachers, Kathy, because you teach so well with the kids. Second, how about one of the contractors' name was called Samuel Hoosier, who preferred to hire his own laborers from Indiana rather than the neighboring state, Kentucky, when they were constructing the Louisville and Portland Canal along the Ohio River. That was back in the 1820s. The Indiana workers were called Hoosiers men, later just shortened to Hoosiers. How many of you knew that? I have heard the name Hoosiers in references to Hoosier hysteria, referring to the high school basketball games. I've heard it named Who's Your Cabinets, or Who's Your Daddy, Who's Your Mommy, Who's Your Hospitality. Evidently, the name of Hoosiers, a character trait that we all have. It's a character trait of hospitable, welcoming, open, inviting new people. All sounds good to me. What do you think? I think if we, as a people of the great state of Indiana, are going to have a traditional value to champion, you couldn't get much better than this. So now I want to ask the tough questions. So how about you? What do you exhibit as Hoosier hospitality? Want to play a short welcome. So how about us as a Christian? Are we caring? Are we compassionate? Are we kind or giving, serving, welcoming, loving, and open to people who have any need of any type? Or are we more like the green Grinch who yells at people to get off my grass when they walk by? As Christians, we are here to exhibit the fruits of the Spirit, which are some of the same qualities as being hospitable. You remember those 9, don't you? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. How are you doing in your life? How are you doing sharing these 9 fruits of the Spirit with your neighbors? How many of us remember and act as we are in the 1 Corinthians chapter 3, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always preserves. Love never fails. How many of us can say, not only with our Hoosier hospitality, but our Christian lives, do we act like that all the time? I remember a story from a seminary professor. He was a pastor at a small church in rural southern Carolina. Every Sunday morning, the people would come into the church, and they all sit, much like a lot of people here, in the same place, in the same pew. And one Sunday, this couple came in, and they sat in the very front row on the right-hand side. And of course, the pastor went over and welcomed them and thanked them for coming. And this lady comes shuffling down the middle aisle and gets up to where this couple were sitting. And I kid you not, this is exactly what she said. Don't you have a pew at your own church you can sit in? Where's the Christian love and hospitality? How many of you would get upset if I said, okay, next Sunday you're not allowed to sit where you normally sit. You got to sit somewhere else. We get comfortable where we're at, don't we? And it almost becomes ours. But that certainly wasn't showing any kind of hospitality, whether it was at a church or certainly not in South Carolina. They're not Hoosiers down there. But the question still needs to be asked. How many of us even invite people to church? How many of us go out of our way to seek out visitors when they come to church so that we can greet them and talk to them? You know, most greeters or visitors, they know that they're going to be greeted by the ushers and probably the pastor at the very beginning, because we see a new face and we go up and say, welcome, I'm glad you're here. And the greeters do the same thing. They come in and they find a place that nobody else's seat so they can sit down. And then what happens? The visitor is expecting something if they're coming to the church. But do you know that the most important time for the visitor is the first 5 minutes after the service? Not before, but after. This is when the people of church sitting near them should be grabbing a hold of them and talking to them. They should be offering not, hey, coffee and donuts or cookies or whatever is right down here. And then you go off to yourself and you sit at your own table and they're left to be sitting wherever. We should be grabbing a hold of them and saying, hey, my name is Doug Spurlock. I happen to be the pastor here, but you or whoever you are. Let's go down and I'll show you where Fellowship Hall is. And on the way, you introduce them to other people. You find out who they are, what they do for a living. Do they have kids? Are they in the area just for a short time? Or are they looking for something? And you sit with them. Oh my goodness, but I always sit over here with everybody else that I always sit with. We can't. We got to take the time to sit with other people, to get to know them, to welcome them in. The reason they're here, something has happened in their life, that they are seeking the ministry of the church in their life. Maybe they're seeking something, an answer to a difficult question, or a spiritual need to get fulfilled. Maybe they need new friendship because they just lost what they've had. Maybe they're looking to join a meaningful group of people that they can become friends with and learn with. But they are here for a reason. And we need to find out what that is so we can help them. And they're going to ask themselves the questions all through this, and especially that last 5 minutes, right, or the first 5 minutes right after the sermon. Will I fit in? Are these people really friendly? In other words, are they going to come up and talk to me and envelop me in so they can introduce me to other people? They don't just leave me in coffee hour by myself and expect me to go out and find people and talk to them. Will they even accept me for who I am? Because I look different than they do. Hospitality and friendliness by our own church helps them answer these questions. But if the people enter the church and they leave the church and they get welcomed on the way in, the pastor says, hi, I'm glad you're here. And as they walk out, well, I hope to see you again, and nobody else does anything, we've lost them. More often than not, they're not going to come back. The snacks in Fellowship Hall is great. But again, if we just say, hey, it's down this way, and nobody walks with them and talks with them and gets to know them, what's the point? We have to get out of our own little comfort zones. If the church does not take seriously welcoming and showing hospitality to new visitors, a church will slowly die. But if the church does seriously during inviting them, welcoming them, and caring for the new visitors, the church will see a 10 to 15% growth each year. The first step in showing hospitality is we simply have to invite people to come. I'm not going to embarrass anybody, but how many of us, think in your heads, have invited somebody to the church in the last year? And I know it's been a tough year. We had to make up for that time that we've all had to lose because of COVID. So we have to double down on how we can invite. A healthy church should get about the same number of visitors a year to match our average attendance. So if our average attendance is 60 a week, and it goes up and down from there, but if we average 60 a week, we means we should be inviting 60 people minimum to church in the course of the year. And if we do that, statistics show if we do that and do our job as not just inviting them and then leaving them while they're here, but walking them through the whole thing, introducing them to everybody, the church grows from 15 to 20%. How nice would that be? These are all things that I have been taken out of a book that I asked several people to read to come alongside, called Shift 2.0. What can we do as a church Christian family to make a bigger family? We need to be inviting our friends and our neighbors and our family, our community. We need to do things that are inviting them to let them see that we have a lot for everybody and that we are all want to be part of this family. I understand this last year has been very tough because of the COVID-19. But like I said, it means we're going to have to try to double down as we come out of this and move forward. The other thing that I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings, but the average age of our congregation is getting older. Now don't throw rotten eggs at me, because I am too. We are, let's face it. So we need to be inviting not just people, we want to invite them too, but not just people our age. We need to invite them that they're younger. We need to invite them. We have a 3-month-old little guy here, Porter, that hopefully will be raised and grow in the church, and that's what we have. We have Henry up here. We love the fact that Henry comes down, and does everybody enjoy Henry? He's wonderful. We have Justice when she's here visiting. We need to invite people with kids. We need to have that welcoming. So let's see what the Bible says. What is hospitality in the Bible? It is based on being hospitable. That's all. Apostle Paul says we should, in Romans chapter 12, contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. This means, according to Hebrews, not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware. 1 Peter chapter 4 tells us that show hospitality to one another without grumbling. Oh, I have to do this. Pastor said you got to do it. The church as a whole should have a reputation for good works. If she has brought up children, has shown hospitality, has washed the feet of the saints, has cared for the afflicted, and has devoted herself to every good work. It tells us that in 1 Timothy chapter 5. So being hospitable is not only a good thing, it's commanded. The Bible's telling us to do this. The Bible, or Paul also writes that in Timothy, that to pastors and elders of the church, hospitable, a lover of good, self-controlled, upright, holy, and disciplined. That comes from Titus. So what are we doing? What are some examples that we can look at from the Bible that could help us? The tax collector, as you heard, Lee did the scripture on what happened there. He hurried and came down and he went to his own house. And because of being hospitable and wanting to be with Christ, because that's what he was searching for, he found it. His house was saved. He learned to give what he needed to be given, to help those who are in need. It was a true conversion. You know, most tax collectors didn't want to give up their money. They weren't into that. They were going to keep everything they had and get as much as they could. What a wonderful thing. As a Christian family, that's where we should be at. How about in the Seller of Purple, in the same chapter that we read about the jailer who showed hospitality to Paul and Silas, we find another great example. Hospitality of Lydia. It says, on the Sabbath day we went outside to the gates to the riverside, where we supposed there was a place of prayer. And we sat down and spoke to the women who had come together. It goes on in Acts telling us that one who heard us was a woman named Lydia from the city of Thyatira, a seller of purple goods, who was a worshiper of God. The Lord opened her heart to pay attention to what was said by Paul. She was baptized, and her household as well. She urged us, saying, if you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come to my house and stay. And she prevailed on them. So Paul, Silas, and apparently Luke, because Luke wrote the book of Acts, and that's why he calls to the group as we, stayed at Lydia's for some time. We don't know for sure how long, but she gave them room and board. They could have stayed for several days. They could have stayed for several weeks or even more. Or another good example of hospitality was the Good Samaritan, found in Luke, who took care of a man who was beaten and left for dead at the side of the road. He cared for his wounds, his housing, his food, and his future. This is what God is calling us to do. We need to be more hospitable. We have good people here. We have caring people here. We have loving people here. And I always am excited to be here because of you people. But as I mentioned earlier, we're not getting any younger, and we need to teach younger people, to reach the younger people, to bring them in that they want to come to church because it's something that they're getting something out of. I would like to start one of the most important teams that I can think of, and I will be calling them teams rather than something else like a committee or that kind of stuff, because it means we're working together. I would like this new group to be a welcome team ministry. They will take part in giving welcome letters or sending welcome letters, getting a gift put together that we can give people when they come into the church that will remind them of us when they go home. Don't know yet what that will entail, but we're going to work on that and try to come up with that, with a bag that we can hand anybody new coming into the church. They might even take part in making a phone call, or if they so wish, a visit that next week, thanking them for coming to church, or just to see how they're doing and hope they come back and ask them to. They're going to be a team that will be one of the most important here, because it's what's going to help grow the church. We need members on this team. I would love to have people come up to me and say, Pastor, I want to be part of that team, that most important team. Something that is needed. The various other ministries that we have in the church need to also reach out, inviting people and being part of the rest of the Christian family. This fall, I would love to be able to start a Wednesday evening family night where we can have a meal, then studies afterwards, where we have the kids go one way, place where they can do crafts and learn scriptures and stuff like that, and the adults would come a different way and have a Bible study. It can be a time that we can invite other people to meet the good people of this church and maybe find some of the good people in the community that are looking. I've even thought about maybe we look at a Sunshine Gang. This is a senior fellowship for those that are retired. Maybe they come over to the church one day a week and we have a study or play cards, or we do something just to get together, but always have some sort of a message before they leave. We can invite other retired people that aren't working during the day, or the ones that work in the evening and want to come. That would be great too, but invite them over so we are including them in a family. They can go out and let other people know, oh, look what this church is doing. I get invited over here and we have a lot of fun. It's enjoyable. We might watch a movie sometime. We might do whatever. But when the church stops inviting and showing hospitality, we become a holy club, not a church. We become a country club of sorts, not a thriving, growing ministry for the cause of Jesus Christ. How many of you take the opportunity to look for visitors? I want to ask you to do that. You know each other. You've been here for long times. You know when it's somebody new. We want to be inclusive to all of them. Invite them to come back another week. Sit with them back in coffee time. By doing this, we are becoming the church of God wants us to be. God is commanding us to do our part. We are His feet and hands, and if we aren't going to be doing this, we're not doing God's asking. We need to be loving and caring and hospitable, fellowship and believers to welcome anyone into our church. We need to be inviting other people by sharing our worship services, which we have done through COVID. What's on our website, which most of you may not even know we have a website. And we need to update the website and bring it more into the forefront. 80% of the people looking for a church will get on the internet and look for a church. And if they see a website that looks like it was done in the 60s, there's nothing going on, they're going to go right past it. We need to look at a website that might have a streaming thing going across the top so it catches their eye. Here's what's going on this week. It can also be used for if we have inclement weather and we have to start, we can have that scrolling across that we have to close church because of snow. Or whatever. We need to put that on the back of our bulletins so everybody knows what the website address is. The sermons can be on that, which they are, but most people, I think, are seeing the sermons on our Facebook page. And we need to make sure we keep the Facebook page up to date as well. We need to update all the tools we can to get people. We need to send cards and letters or emails when we miss somebody. Call people. Say, hey, hello, we missed you. Sorry you weren't here. Hope everything's okay. Look forward to seeing you next week. And I even submit that we should look at sending out a card or a postcard or something to the community at large a couple times a year to show them that somebody's thinking about them and caring. And if they don't have a church, we would like to invite them to come check us out and see what we have. We can get that information online. There's places you can go and get by address and send a postcard out. We need to become intentional about fellowship and hospitality to grow the family. And the only way we can do that is to have all of us, even though it's a little bit out of our comfort zones, at least support us with prayer, if not taking part of it. This is a wonderful church, and we want to see it maintained and stay and grow. But if we don't, as we all get older and die off, we can't keep it going. When I came here, that was one of the questions that were asked of me. What do you think about growing a church? And my response was, that's what I want to do. That's what I felt called to come here for, was to help grow the church. And growing means change, unfortunately, and I know as well as anybody else, people don't like change. That's why you sit in the same seat, or almost, every Sunday. It's a little uncomfortable. It's out of our comfort zone. But as Christians, God's calling us not to sit back and be comfortable all the time, but to bid the work that He's asking, to go out and do it, to help. And I know we all can. And I'm so proud of each and every one of you that will support this through prayer, through working with us. But I know we can do it. It's a wonderful church. And we all love family, and that's the most important. This is our Christian family. Let us pray. Lord, help us to be a people of hospitality, to love our neighbor as ourselves, to be loving, compassionate, caring, and just plain friendly. In Jesus'